All right, moving on, we have a panel discussion next. Our moderator for the panel discussion is Ms. Sonal Shibber, editor, GEC Media Group. Let's welcome Ms. Sonal. And I have the delegates going to speak on this is Mohammad Al-Nabtiti, PMO and Governance Manager, BIA. Welcome, Mr. Mohammed. We have Dr. Aruna Rabel, Corporate Governance and Compliance, and Krishnan Anand, Director Head of IT, Emirates Investment Bank. Let's give it for Mr. Krishnan. The topic they're going to speak on is who leads the enterprise ESG strategy and how can CIOs enable this? Over to you, Ms. Sonal and gentlemen.
A warm greeting to our exemplary panelists and wonderful audience here. So the topic for today's discussion is who leads the enterprise's ESG strategy and how can CIOs enable this? So the enterprise's ESG, environmental, social, and governance strategy is typically led by the executive leadership team, including the CEO, CFO, and the Chief Sustainability Officer, CSO, or equivalent role. However, CIOs, Chief Information Officers, can play a critical role in enabling the enterprise's ESG strategy. So I would like to know from all of you that according to you, who should be responsible for leading an enterprise's ESG strategy and why? We'll start with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would like to introduce myself. First of all, my name is Mohammad Nabtiti, and I head the PMO and Governance Department in BIA. Now, in according to your question, of course, it is essential to have ESG strategies, environmental, social, and governance strategies in any organization. Now, this should be spearheaded by the leadership team of the organization, and this leadership team should put the foundations in the company in order to run a program and a strategy for achieving sustainability and governance. Now, the leadership team, of course, led by the board of directors and the CEO, should appoint a dedicated team. This team, we can call it the ESG team, and they will be responsible for implementing this strategy and, of course, also for following up with its performance in the organization. Now, this team should include expertise in the environment, in sciences. It should have also expertise in social metrics, in environmental and sustainability metrics. So the team will follow up with the performance of the organization in following these strategies, and can also collaborate with other stakeholders, including investors, suppliers, vendors, and they can report the progress on this implementation. And it is very important to collaborate and share these reports because investors today, they focus on organizations that look after ESG strategies. And by showing the commitment of the organization to environmental, social, and governance strategies, this will attract more capital from investors, and therefore it will thrive the organization in long term. Of course, last but not least, this should also include all employees of the organization. If you want the success of the organization in achieving its sustainability goals, all employees must be involved.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that, that all employees should be, involved in ECG, and it's how it goes, because when whole company and whole employees are, working on a common goal, it always leads to fruitful results. So Dr. Arun, what do you have to say on this? Do you agree with him, disagree? What? I want to know your view.
I agree to an extent.
Okay.
While agreeing that CEO, CSO, whoever you mentioned are the key enablers of the execution, but I think the overall responsibility of this investment lies with the one level above.
True.
I think the board of directors, if any organization has board of directors of any governmental organization, if there's a level above the operational authorities, I think they are mainly responsible for the defining the strategy, understanding the environmental, social needs, and where the governance can be because the governance is way above the overall operational levels. So building up that governance structure is quite important, so that I believe the ownership should lie with one layer above, while the execution responsibilities are lying with the operational authority.
Yes, I agree to that. A proper structure in place is very important. So, Mr. Krishnan, what you have to say on this?
So first of all, it's a good idea to have taken ESG as a topic for this panel. So congrats to the GC Media Group to kind of put a spotlight on ESG. I'm sure in this audience there will be various degrees of awareness / orientation / experience in ESG, but trust me, 18 to 24 months from now, I think we will all be on par, because that's where organizations will have to focus in the next 1-2 years. Again, across the world, there is a different level of maturity on ESG itself. And as my friend here rightly pointed out, there is an ESG requirement, and there is an organization's vision and its values. And you have to marry them before you actually spell out what you want to do on ESG, right? And as the saying goes, right, one man's food is another man's poison, right? So this is not a one-size-fits-all, right? So yes, the accountability to take up ESG goals as a prerequisite and embed them as an organizational objective, yes, it's part of the board's direction. But then the executive committee in an organization is the actual execution body, if you might say, who will take responsibility in trying to define what they can contribute to the ESG goal, and then identify how they can embed them. And more often than not, when you talk about objectives, is that you take 3-4 standard ones and then just fit this in. I think ESG will not work that way anymore. And today we don't have very strict regulations, we don't have mandates, but in the next 1-2 years, all of this will bound to come, and you will have to be very objective about reporting ESG information. Today it's broadly subjective, all right, and it's left to the discretion of what you want to do. But then there is a lot of focus in this area. Of course, the more mature and large organizations who have a global footprint do have a separate sustainability group in itself, which coordinates with multiple units within the organization and then starts defining these goals and gets inputs and defines metrics. But in smaller organizations, typically it's with the operating roles, the CEOs/CIOs, who become the execution arm.
Yeah, I agree with you. CIOs play a very crucial role, and I can see Dr. Arun wants to elaborate or speak on this as well. So
Yeah, while agreeing with Mr. Krishnan, add on to that, I think, yes, understanding of ESG, I think it's still at infant stages. So the ESG was first discussed at United Nations level in as early as 2006. And then the global organization started. And when it comes to reporting, it is very obvious during last few years, if you really observe the reporting trends, it is over-skewed towards environmental factors. Global warming, the climate changes, and all these things probably have contributed to take that attention from governance away towards the environment factor. I think now it's time for us to go back to our drawing boards and find out how we can redefine our reporting structure to focus more on governance part. The reason is, if you do not strike a good balance between three key pillars, environmental, social, and governance part, I think this valuable concept may face kind of a failure, as you said, within next few years to come.
Actually, it's not even 2006. This dates back to 1992. So it's taken 30 years for people to understand the importance of ESG, all right? And this is like the Facebook story, right? From 0 to 1 million, it took them 7 years of subscribers. From 1 to 2 million, it took them like 1 year, and from 2 to 4 million, it took them 6 months, right? This is going to be exactly the same story for ESG, right? So suddenly, it's going to become the priority for everyone, because I have the 2022 report from the UN on ESG, and you read it, it's mind-boggling, and the kind of data that has gone into presenting this is just outstanding. And I urge all of you to just go to the UN site. It's available for everyone to read, and you can download this. The reason why you will be chasing your own tail on ESG is there is so many multiple factors that are not in your control. A sample is the whole pandemic that we had. Until 2019, there were so many nations which actually made progress on ESG. It just took 6 months to wipe out 4 years of work that nations did. Right? So it is going to be a challenge, and it is going to be a lot of focus in the geopolitical scenario as well. But then, like it or not, we will have to embed it in our objectives.
True. True. So, Mr. Mohammed, can you elaborate how can organizations ensure that their ESG strategies are integrated into their business operations and decision-making process?
Well, obviously, this is very critical. Organizations must align the ESG values and objectives to their organizational objectives. And this starts with the board of directors and the CEO, aligning them with their mission, vision, mission, and values. And then it goes to the ESG team to put metrics on those and integrate those metrics with KPIs. Those KPIs can be used to measure the performance of the organization in aligning its objectives with the ESG objectives. Now, after setting those KPIs, they can report the performance of the organization, and they can also align them with internal processes, business processes. For example, if you're talking about waste management, you can align ESG objectives with waste management processes, or with supply chain management, or product design, or even customer engagement. All these internal processes that are in the organization must take into account the ESG values and strategy and objectives. And therefore, it will allow continual feedback to be getting from the stakeholders and from the employees and from the board of directors. So if we report a certain amount of percentage of progress against a certain objective or a certain value in the ESG, we will be able to gather feedback from the stakeholders, which will feed back into the objectives, and it will properly align the objectives of the organization along with the objectives of the ESG strategy.
Yes, that's right. Proper alignment of objectives is very crucial for a company's success. And now I want to know from Mr. Mohammed that what metrics should be used to measure an enterprise's ESG performance, and how can these be tracked and reported effectively to the stakeholders?
Well, too many metrics, but I will go ahead and use the model that we use at our organization, BIA. In our organization, in our vision and mission, they are based on a twin-pillar strategy: sustainability and digitization. And these two pillars, they blend beautifully together as metrics that we measure against. So when it comes to sustainability, for example, we built a smart building that utilizes energy effectively and uses solar panels and uses renewable sources of energy. We also have robots that utilize artificial intelligence in our waste management facilities that use artificial intelligence and image recognition to sort waste in different facilities. We even integrated Chat GPT in our organization, and it became a thing in our organization today that employees use Chat GPT, and we have workshops on how we can utilize it in our operations, in our productivity. So these are examples where technology is merged with digitalization. If you're talking about waste management, yes, we have technology that sorts it. If you're talking about a smart building and using renewable energies, yes, we have a building that utilizes it. In addition to our goals in waste management and sustainability, in increasing the diversion rate of waste away from landfills, and so on.
That's very commendable that your organization has taken so many initiatives. And now I would like to know from Mr. Arun, what all initiatives are there in your organization?
Organizational perspective, I think it's too premature. I would say the global understanding of ESG, has it been passed down to this part of the world and the Asian region, for an example, particularly the African continent, is a question. The second aspect is now, at this moment, if you really look at the profiles of organizations who are really believing in ESG, are the kind of large-scale multinational organizations. And the medium and smaller scale organizations are very rarely seen in those ESG reporting structure. And the other hand, in time to come, as Mr. Krishnan said, yes, within next 1 to 2 years, this will become the kind of the common topic among all these. It's not going to be an option. However, the ESG score, which has been published by GRI on an annual basis, I would say it needs kind of improvisation. Number one, the environmental and social factors particularly should not be generalized. Each country, each region, each industry, it has its own environmental impact, environmental factors contributing to their cultures, and the social factors. I think when we are defining all these things, being a new entrant into this ESG, probably the UAE, we need to look at some kind of a region-specific, country-specific, as well as industry-specific objectives and KPIs for our ESG strategy as well as reporting.
That's right. There is still a long way to go regarding the ESG goals which an organization needs to achieve. I'm sure Mr. Krishnan will agree on that. Yeah, okay. So to summarize, implementing an ESG strategy can help an enterprise to reduce risks, enhance its reputation, and generate long-term value for its stakeholders. It is increasingly seen as a key aspect of responsible business practices, and many investors are now considering an organization's ESG performance when making investment decisions. While the executive leadership team and the CSO typically lead the enterprise's ESG strategy, CIOs can play a critical role and contribute their expertise in data collection and analysis, technology implementation, communication, collaboration, risk management, and thus provide insights to help inform decision making. I want to thank all the distinguished panelists for sharing their valuable inputs.
Thank you.
We are running out of time, so I'll just take one or two questions from the audience. The forum is open. In case you want to ask something, please go ahead. Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
We're that clear, I guess.
Yeah, they're absorbing all the information, so it will take time to process. Thank you very much for your time, for listening us, and thank you to all the panelists for sharing your valuable inputs. Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you. All right.